Okay, Kingsley, we're into another video around starting up a business from scratch. Let's talk about business structures. There's a few different structures that are out there. Now, this is general advice only in nature, guys. This is not personal financial advice. If you do want personal financial advice, please book an appointment with Kingsley or a lawyer. We would recommend HHG Legal to go and find out what the right structure for you is. But in general terms, Kingsley, let's talk about business structures.
Okay, and I guess in a sense we'll probably mostly focus on this one, on the risks part. And so you've broadly opportunities are obviously good old sole trader, partnership, company, and trust, either a family trust or possibly a unit trust if it's something a bit bigger. If we go sole trader in some cases makes sense, particularly for
Kingsley's office is trying to attack him.
Particularly for something small, we talk about that side hustle. You're just going to kick it off, just see how it goes. I don't want to spend a lot of money up front, just want to see if it looks like it is something that people will pay money for. Side hustle, sole trader may well make sense, but the great problem with a sole trader, of course, is if it goes wrong and someone sues you, you did it in your own name, so they're going to sue you. And everything, including the family home that's in your name, is now at risk. That's the chief risk problem with the sole trader. And that's where it gets tricky for people that are possibly going to do something on a small scale initially, but still could be quite risky. So if someone's, in a sense, going into the professions and they're just going to work a couple of days a week from home or something like that, so they think, well, I don't want to spend a lot of money on a big expensive structure. But of course, the danger is it could well be the first little client that they have ends up being the one who makes this sort of ridiculous lawsuit against them 6 months down the track. So they're the trickier ones where you're trying to just do a cheap little dip your toe, but you could be facing just as big a risk as if you've got a turnover in the millions of dollars. So that's the sole traders. Next one to look at would be partnerships, and on a risk front, they are really the worst of all in that you can find yourself, as we talked about in our previous video, where again, if say you and I went into a partnership, Lou and I have done some monumental stuff up, they might choose to sue you to get the money because they deem it's easier to get money off you than what it is me, and your risk is, in a sense, unlimited. So everything that you own in your own name could be at risk, even though it was Kingsley who did the stuff up and vice versa. So that's the worst sort of structure. So you don't really find partnerships anymore outside of family, and husband and wife situations where it's sort of we're all in it together anyway. Or there's a few limited situations of businesses, mostly again in the professions, where the law says you have to trade through a partnership because and the reason they've done it is because of that risk. They've said, right, this is a very important profession. We need people to be very, very careful. So we'll make it very, very risky in a sense to stuff up. And so they say you must operate as a partnership. But anyone else, if it's of any consequence, and particularly if it involves people other than your spouse, it'll be a very strange decision to use a partnership. Then on to one of the more common ones, I guess, and in terms of risk, the most important one to discuss, and that's companies. So companies have the great advantage that they have this so-called corporate veil where you might be a shareholder in the company. Something's gone wrong. Bill Bloggs is suing you. And if you're just a mere shareholder, well, they can sue the company because that's what they transacted with. And so the assets of the company are at risk, but they should not be able to come back at you as a mere shareholder and attack the things that you own. The only money you're up for is, let's say you bought $100,000 worth of shares and you've only so far paid 50 grand. Well, you've got to pay the remaining 50, but that's it. So even if the company's been sued millions of dollars and you own 20% of this company, you don't have to pay any more than what you may not have paid on your shares. What we've got to be careful though in the small business environment is often you are a director of your company, and so they may be able to attack you as a director. And again, this is where you probably need to be more talking to a lawyer to get into the real nitty-gritty, but the classic situation here where you could be exposed very badly is workplace safety. So even it's now as a director, you can't really say, well, you were employed by my company, not me. I'm off the hook. That's not going to work with the workplace safety stuff. So you need to be mindful around that. So the company structure will work in most instances, but there are a few more things, particularly if you are a director, where you might find the company doesn't help you very much. Then that takes us to the other structures of trusts. And I guess broadly speaking, there's two main sorts that a small business person might look at. One is the family trust, very common. And in that scenario, it's the key job. Trusts have a number of sort of jobs or roles that people must serve in a trust. And the key one is the trustee. And the trustee is sort of the day-to-day manager of the trust, you might say, the agent / sort of manager type person of the trust. And that trustee can either be a person or it can be a company. Now, if it's a person, let's say I set up a trust and I'm going to be the trustee, and it's a demolition company, which would be a very poor choice for me to be the trustee, but let's say I'm dumb enough to do that. Something goes wrong and we get sued, then the two sort of things that can be sued, so to speak, are the trustee and the trust itself. So that person who got squashed under the slab of concrete can sue me for the assets in the trust, but they can also sue me personally. So that, again, my family home is on the line. So what you'll see a lot of people, if they're going to do a trust, is they will go and get a company to be the trustee. And so if something goes wrong, then yes, the assets of the business, the trust itself, are still on the line. But the trustee's not Kingsley Smith the person. It's XYZ Proprietary Limited. You might have a couple of dollars for the 2 or 3 shares it issued, and that's it. And so that's where the liability should stop. Other than the proviso, as we've talked with companies, that you still have issues around particularly workplace safety. So that's the risk for a family trust. And broadly, it's the same in a unit trust, that if you decide to do the role of being a trustee, you've put yourself in harm's way. And so again, you'll probably find with unit trusts, if it's running a business, that it's probably got a company trustee, not a person. Generally speaking, you'll find trusts will only have people as the trustees if it's just doing very plain old passive investing, buying a few shares, that sort of thing. If it's running a business of any size and consequence, highly likely it's been recommended to you that you get a company. And that's basically done fairly quickly, but and you should, if you're going to do something of some consequence, you should seek further advice. But that's the chief broad outline of the risks involved with the various structures, Lou.
Fantastic. And guys, we do have a free download on our website under our resources tab with some general information around business structures as well. And as always, if you would like further advice, you can always book an appointment with Kingsley. Thank you.